Hello and welcome back to the Global Missions broadcast booth. I am sitting here with some great families, and we're going to talk about families in short-term missions. I have with me the McBrides and the Nashes, and I'm so excited you guys are here today, and we get to talk some about what it's like to have a family in short-term missions. I know it can be kind of a scary thing sometimes, especially when you're going into short-term missions, because there's not really any secure thing moving forward. It's short-term missions, and it's hard to sometimes jump in as with a family into short-term missions. So we want to just kind of break some of this stuff down, talk about it. And so we'll start with you guys, the McBrides. Just give us a little bit a history about you guys. Where are you guys from? Where have you been? And kind of introduce yourself.
Well, hello. My name is Michael McBride. This is my wife, Tia. We are from North Carolina, and we felt God calling us to the mission field, and so we applied for AIM, and we went to Latvia for about 4 months. We were there, and then after that, we went on another trip to Moldova, but also in that time frame, we were able to spend 10 months in Ukraine. So it was 10 months Ukraine, 3 months Moldova. So it's been a good journey, many different places, many different experiences, and we're just grateful for the opportunity that we've been given to be able to be a part of what God's doing around the world.
Absolutely. And the Nashes.
I'm Matthew Nash. This is my wife, Annalisa, my better half. We are from Ohio, Columbus area. We have had opportunity to be in Botswana and Zimbabwe on a 3-month mission trip, and then we just got back in July from Fiji, and we were there about 9 months.
Awesome. So I think one of the challenges that we face, especially as young families, we're in the working force. We're trying to provide. We're in the stage where we're buying our first houses and things like that. I will start with you guys. How did these things affect your decision, or was that a part of your decision, thinking like, man, how do I go from where I'm at now in the States to giving up what I've been working on? You know, as we're taught as a young age, hey, you got to be saving, you've got to be looking to buy a house, your education, all of those things are playing into our thinking process. And then when they say, oh, short-term missions, it's, by the way, give up everything and go on the missions field. So was that an issue, or was that a challenge, or how did you overcome that?
I would definitely say it was a challenge mentally to get over wrestling with, I'm a young husband. I have the responsibility of now, for me, it was easy when I was single. I can do whatever I want. But now I have a family, and not only, do I have to figure out how to provide for my family, but, God is calling us, and we're given the opportunity to go to a completely different country. And, that's a lot of responsibility. And it's there's a lot of questions that are involved in that. But, just connecting with people who have gone before and figuring out how they've managed that situation. And, from the husband's perspective, I definitely feel like it was a challenge and of getting over that hurdle of, how is this going to happen financially? How is this going to happen to take care of my family? Are they going to be okay?
Absolutely. And I think that's definitely something that us as men are going to struggle with, or it's going to be the first thing on our mind. But what was the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, so I knew that we were going to go into missions. We felt the call. We didn't know where we were going, so that kind of was like a little challenge. So we were getting married. I remember doing our registry for our wedding, and I was like, man, I don't know what we should get, because I don't know how long we're going to be in the States. I don't know about, what do I need? What do I not need? What am I attached to? I kind of had to work through the things, because when you're newly married and you're trying to nest and start a home, you want all the things, you want the beautiful place, everything. But we had a 1-year lease on our apartment, so I just got a few necessities. And then when we went to the field, I sold everything. So I guess I just tried not to get attached to the things of North America or to the things that are replaceable. A lot of things are replaceable. And so I think you just have to keep the mindset. If you know that missions is your future, some things are temporary, and that's okay. And you may not have what your friend has on Instagram. I remember being on the field our first AIM term, and a lot of my friends had gotten married. They were buying cars, they were buying houses, they were having babies and all this stuff. And I just remember thinking, you know what? It's not my season. It's not my season. And we're going to be so fulfilled doing what God has called us to do, just like they're going to be fulfilled doing what God called them to do.
Absolutely. And the first time that you went on the field, it was just the two of you. And now we're getting ready to go back on the field, and there's a third one coming along. So what are the new challenges that you guys are facing as a young family bringing a small baby with you?
I'll let Sister Tia speak to that first.
Well, our son is perfect, so that makes things a little bit easier. No, I am that mom. We have a 9-month-old, and I'm so excited that our son gets to grow up in different cultures. He gets to experience the world. And I've tried not to think about like what he's missing out on. I try to think of the gift that we are giving him. We are giving him a gift that a lot of kids don't get. We're getting to expose him to different languages, different cultures, different foods, different experiences that, you know, if we were raising him in the States, he would never get that. And, you know, we are right next door to Ukraine. So there is that hesitation. People ask us, like, are you afraid of, like, you know, taking your son near a war zone? Well, you know what? It's the craziest thing. I'm an Enneagram type 1. I like everything planned out. I like A, B, C. But it's so crazy. There's so much uncertainty with the situation that's happening, everything that's going on over there. But I have never felt the peace of God like I feel right now. And so when you know that you're walking in your calling, there's nothing that can shake that. You just have to go and know that God's going to provide and God's going to protect, because, you know, a lot of things can happen here in North America that, you know, are unexplainable or unavoidable. So you just have to go where God's leading you and trust in Him, and that's what we're going to do.
So let's go over to the Nashes. Kind of the same idea. You guys are moving into associate missions, so coming out of A, moving into associate missions, and you guys have 3 kids. So it's a different story for you as well. When my wife and I went into missions, we had 2 small kids, very young. Tell us, I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision to say, hey, let's uproot our entire family and go on the missions field for something that could only last a year, and then we got to try and refigure it out all again. What were some of the things that you guys went through? And speaking to possessions and things that we have in the States, what did that look like for you? Did you already have your house bought? Did you have to sell? What did you get rid of? What did you keep? Give us a little history on how that took place.
I guess when we first got our first appointment in Botswana and Zimbabwe, God had already prepared in our hearts, even before we knew, that He said, you need to get debt free. So we started working through the process of getting as completely debt free as we possibly could. We had vehicle loans, we had credit cards, we had all the things. And we're like, how are we going to do it? But thankfully, God had told us to get debt free before, to have that freedom. So when it was going into missions, He could just continue to that process. So before COVID, we went out to Botswana right before COVID happened, but God told me, so you need to pay off your truck and your car. I don't know how you're going to do it, but you need to do that before you leave. So when we came back, we didn't have that burden. And, you know, with losing our jobs or not having jobs when we come back, it made it challenging. But we didn't have that challenge because we didn't have those car payments, those credit card bills. So that was a big thing for us. The other thing I think made us nervous, I guess, what are we going to do to our children? I mean, we have a 13-year-old girl now. So she was probably 11 or 12 years old at that time going to Africa. And we're like, am I going to mess up her whole life? You know? But we went to a church service in my grandparents' church in South Florida, Brother Hadaball's church, and he came up to us and he's like, I just feel like God's telling me that your kids are going to reach people that you can't reach. And that word that we needed that time of the word, you know, he didn't know what we were struggling with and what we're wrestling with. And we're like, man, I don't know what we're going to do. But that timely word for us is huge. And it gave us the reassurance that we should move on and keep walking and do what God wants us to do.
Sister Nash, your stuff, like your things, was that process of like saying, okay, we've got established life here with kids in school or homeschool, I don't know. We've got our vehicles, all that. What did that look like for you? I mean, this decision wasn't made that long ago. You guys are just now moving into AMP. So tell us what it was like.
Right. So, yeah, that was a huge part of this process. And we did look at each other and think, are we crazy? Like, what are we doing?
I think so. I think we're all a little crazy.
You know, we both had established careers. You know, I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. My husband owned his own construction company. I mean, we had a house, a mortgage. We had kids in school. All the things, yeah. So we were like, what are we doing? But the call was so strong. We had such a peace. We knew God was just going to take care of it, you know? And every time we would sit down and try to run the numbers, and of course, I'm gonna admit, he's the numbers guy and I'm the God will work it out. You know? So I think in every couple, you'll probably have one or the other, you know? So you work together. It's like, okay, we can write down all the numbers, but but we're also going to just have faith that God's going to help us through this, and he's going to work it out. And he has every time. You know, we spent the 3 months in Africa, and just, I kind of said at one point, I don't think a freight train could stop us at this point, because God is just opening every single door, like effortlessly. You know, we had kids in 2 different schools, and both of the teachers from both of the schools were absolutely, we can just send them with 3 months of schoolwork, no big deal, you know? Okay, you know, and we're thinking, do we need to pull them out? Do we start homeschool mid-year? And it just worked out, you know? And with jobs, oh, sure, you can take 3 months off. Well, you can save up your PTO, and you can get paid full-time. You know, I mean, it was incredible. Obviously, going into the longer missions trip, the 9 months in Fiji, took quite a bit more planning. You know, it did take some time to save up money back. We had to figure out what are we going to do with our house for that length of time. We were able to have family members rent it, you know, from us and help us out. The cars still paid off. You know, we just parked them at family members' houses. And coming back from Fiji again, it was just, okay, God, what are we doing now? And you really, I just tell people with missions, you have to have 2 things. You have to have flexibility, and you have to have patience. God's going to open the doors. If he's called you, if he's put that burden in your life, he's going to make a way. You don't have to force it. You don't have to worry about it. You just keep walking through the doors one step at a time. We have no idea how we're going to get the budget, how we're going to pay the bills at home at this point. I'll be completely honest. But I know God's going to work it out, because he keeps doing it every time. So it's like I can't, you know, even when I'm not faithful, he is. I love that song. It always plays in my head over and over again.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that's one thing that we have to realize is that every time, one of the biggest fears for young families is the finances. Obviously, we have to figure out, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to deal with leaving our jobs, coming back, going for 3 months, coming back? That's a big commitment. But I will say that every time, God has always worked it out. I know you might say, oh, it's just cliche to say it. I can tell you, and I know everybody up here can agree, when you make the decision, like if you're thinking about doing missions, saying, okay, I want to do missions one day, the details aren't going to fall into place. When you make the decision to say, I am going to do missions, this is where I'm going, this is the date that I'm leaving, I promise you, every time, God does it just like he said he would, exactly when it's supposed to happen. The school works out perfect. The finances works out perfect. And this isn't a Dave Ramsey commercial, but I will say that being debt-free is a big help when you can. So if you're thinking about doing missions, start with getting debt-free, because it will make your life so much easier. It will make the process so much easier. Tell us how your kids adjusting.
Well, as Matt said, we do have 3 kids where we have a wide span of ranges. So there we have a 13-year-old daughter, we have a 10-year-old son, and we have a 1-year-old daughter. So the 13-year-old is definitely working through all the things, but she is our, Enneagram type 1 that Tia says. I think she's just planning everything, and she already has told us just this summer, Mom, okay, so once you guys are appointed, and, you know, of course, we're claiming that in faith as well, but once you're appointed, then I'll be on the missions field with you about this length of time, because then I'll come back, because I'll be 18, so then I'll go to Bible school, so I'm going to go to IBC for a couple years, and then I'm going to switch to Liberty, and I'm going to get this degree. I mean, she's got it all planned out. And I think that's great, that I think that that's kind of maybe her coping strategy is that this is part of her life, and she knows that we're called to this. She knows that this is going to happen, but she's also planning for after that. And I think that's fine. You know, I think it's a really healthy way for her to process it and get through those steps. Our son Parker is laid back, easygoing, is like, when we told him, you know, we're like, oh, God's finally given us this revelation of what we're going to do with our lives, right? And here we are in our mid-30s at the time, and we tell our son, who was probably 7 years old at the time, okay, Parker, you know, God's calling us to be missionaries. And he said, I knew that. Like, okay, great. Well, why didn't you tell us, you know? And he tells us all the time, I have friends all over the world, you know? I mean, he really does just go with it. He loves it. You know, we spent 9 months in Fiji. He caught frogs and lizards and, you know, climbed who knows what and played in who knows what, but he loved it. You know, it's an adventure for him. Like you said, like these kids are getting experiences that other kids will never get. And then we have our 1-year-old, you know, she is, we call her our Fiji baby because she did spend half of her life in Fiji. And she just, I don't think she's going to know any different. You know, it's just going to be her life. So I think that's great as well. So it is interesting to see, you know, we have a child that spent most of her life living up as a pretty average kid in the States. And then we've got the middle one who's loving life as it goes, and then the baby who's not going to know any different. So it's going to be interesting to watch them grow through this process.
That's awesome. And for you guys are now taking a small baby. For us, one of the biggest challenges was being away from people, your support and your family. Is that something that you guys have thought about or thinking about or have a plan for now that you've got this baby, you're in an area, you know, what kind of challenges are you planning for as we're closing up here with taking a small child across on the other side of the world?
Yeah, so I think one of the strategies of dealing with that was we started to try to actually recruit our family to come with us to help us, and it kind of helps bridge the gap for everyone, for them to not miss out on time, but also to get the experience, even having the opportunity to do short-term missions themselves, even at a different stage in life, and giving them opportunities that, you know, they may not have had before, but now because we're there and because their grandson is there, well, now we have the opportunity. It may look different than the next person, but, you know, we're just trying to recruit our family and
Grandparents make great aimers.
Amen.
Just saying.
Amen.
Yeah, we're going to put that on a T-shirt. Yes, that's so awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time. Thank you for tuning in, for watching the broadcast here. We want to say thank you. Thank you for all your support. Obviously, we can't do short-term missions or any kind of missions without your help. If you're thinking about going into missions and you're a young family, it can be done. We have proof here. It can be done. Yes, it may be challenging, and there are challenges you will have to overcome, but those challenges are possible to overcome, and we're excited. Come join us in missions. We're having a great time.